For the record, this matter is before the court for the purpose of reviewing records from the defendant's father's physician, I believe regarding a psychological mental health evaluation. This hearing is being conducted via Zoom. President Attorney Alex Goldman, representing the plaintiff mother Sarah Perkins. Ms. Perkins is present, as is the defendant father James Wentworth. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Your Honor.
I don't know if Ms. Prater at the front of the court or Mr. Goldman, if you received his copy of any mental health evaluation. The court has not.
Your Honor, I did have an assessment that was scanned into the on-base file. Mr. Goldman received that while we were in court with Mr. Wentworth's permission. Mr. Wentworth directed me that it was sent, so I did not send it to the court. Okay, that's fine as long as you have reviewed it, Mr. Pratt. Right, and you received a copy of that assessment, right? Correct, Mr. Goldman?
From Ms. LaPrade, yes.
All right, the recommendation, Mr. Pratt. Is to reinstate parenting time for the defendant father, Mr. Wentworth. Parenting time will be with my child at his home with the paternal grandfather present every Sunday from noon until 4 p.m. Parties shall meet at the Milan Police Station. And further on, Mr. Wentworth completed the mental health assessment virtually. That's
yes,
the recommendation.
Yes. I did apologize for the timely fashion. I could evaluation, and I do appreciate the court's patience.
Okay. All right, Mr. Goldman, does your client agree with this recommendation?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll let you, Mr. Wentworth, do you agree with this recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. I do feel that, I mean, every child should have both of their parents actively involved in their life. And this situation is something that will never happen again. And moving forward, I think it's only best that me and Sarah do everything we can for this child. And any parenting time that I can get, I know it's just steps in a better direction. So from noon until 4 p.m. every Sunday would reintroduce my son's father back into his life, which I feel is important.
Well, it's important that you continue your mental health treatment, taking recommended to prescribe medications.
Yes, Your Honor. And I do believe the courts have received a letter from a counselor that did, I mean, just to reassure you that I am trying my best to show you that I am stable and I am able to provide Colton with a healthy and comfortable environment to grow up in. You know, I think every child should have that.
And obviously, we want the child to be safe when the child is with you. And we don't want to scare the child by any inappropriate or unusual actions, conduct on your part.
Of course, Your Honor. And I apologize for this entire misunderstanding. I think there's a lot of conflicting views as of right now, but I just want to show the court that I am perfectly capable of raising my son in a safe and healthy environment.
Do you live with your grandfather?
Yes, I do. So he'll be here all the time. I have a lot of family around here, and I'm sure none of us have seen Colton in 4 months. So he's going to get a lot of visitors from all of my family.
You continue to engage in regular counseling?
I can do that, yes, if you would like.
I'm not saying do you intend to. Are you currently involved in regular follow-up counseling?
Yes. Well, once again, it's all done virtually. I did a session back when this first started, just trying to get steps in the right direction to providing the mental health evaluation. But if it would look better to the court that I see this therapist once a week, I can provide that.
When is your next appointment scheduled?
I could call her after this hearing and see when her next available time would be.
Are you currently taking any prescribed medications?
I am not taking any medications.
All right. No medication is being recommended. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I take Tylenol when I have a headache, but as far as carrying out my everyday functions, I don't need psychological any kind of a psych med. I'm perfectly capable of functioning just the way I am. And if I wasn't, I'm sure the psychologist would have prescribed something.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Going back to you, what's the basis for your client's objection if it's, we have it to be supervised by the paternal grandfather?
We don't think that there's been any evidence provided that shows that Mr. Wentworth will not traumatize his child further. We have this assessment where he basically told somebody over Zoom, I'm fine. The whole thing back in May was a misunderstanding. And the therapist said, oh, sure, he seems fine now. I don't doubt that Mr. Wentworth has periods of lucidity and stability. The problem is we need to make sure that it's never going to happen around his child again. The fact that he didn't automatically schedule regular therapy sessions and that no mental health medication is needed, the allegations in the motion speak for themselves. We'll have verification of those facts once we get the police report back, which is taking longer than I'd expected. They have until October 15th. The child is now in therapy. The therapist recognized that the child has been traumatized by this incident, a severe incident. Remember, Mr. Wentworth was naked with his child, ranting about radiation and planes falling from the sky. This wasn't some misunderstanding. He appears to have misreported the nature of his hospitalization to the psychiatrist or psychologist performing this assessment. He said that he was involuntarily committed for 10 days because Mrs. Campbell alleged that he was suicidal. That's grossly mischaracterizing why he was institutionalized for 10 days. We don't have any paperwork from that, from Havenwick Hospital where he was institutionalized. We don't have any police reports verifying that what my client said is true. We don't have any indication that a mental health provider was given the full picture. I think that anybody who would read the motion would want to follow up and at least ask Mr. Wentworth some directed questions. But it appears that he just sat before somebody, said, I'm fine. And Mr. Wentworth does seem fine today. The problem is we really need to be 100% sure before we put him in the same room as a child. The court's own order states that he has suspended parenting time, not restricted, suspended parenting time until we have a mental health physician provide testimony to this court. I just think it's premature to put him in the same room as the child, Your Honor.
Well, that's
So
why
the
we
report you received is not adequate, in your opinion, then, Mr. Goldman?
Correct.
Your Honor, if I may.
Yeah, just a minute, Mr. Wentworth. Yes, the allegations are quite disturbing. Mr. Goldman, do you intend, and I realize you're new in the case after Mr. Keeney has left your office, have you issued any subpoenas to the Trinity Health Behavioral Services Facility where Mr. Wentworth was institutionalized for what, 7 days or something, 10 days? Do you have those reports, police reports, medical reports? I mean, that would certainly provide the court some insight.
Certainly. Like I said, police records are forthcoming. The Michigan State Police told us that they have until October 15th to comply with our request. As far as subpoenaing the mental health records, I can get on that right away. Mr. Wentworth says that he has those in his possession. I certainly, if there was a way to allay my concerns, we are willing to be reasonable on this. I just think it's premature to take Mr. Wentworth for his word.
Well, with that being said, I'm sure if the psychologist, who is a medical professional that did conduct my evaluation, had any concerns, they would have put that in the summary. But I have received counseling.
Mr. Wentworth,
yes.
Did you inform your counselor, the person that did the evaluation, that you were institutionalized for 7
Yes,
or 10 days?
I've explained them the entire situation.
Well, he lied about the situation.
Did you provide them a copy of all the records?
Yes, I have. I do have physical copies of those, and I have no problem submitting those to Mr. Goldman. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm still here because I want to be the best father that I can be for my son, and I do believe he is entitled to that, and that's why we have.
Mr. Wentworth.
Yes,
we understand that, but obviously these allegations are pretty significant, pretty disturbing. And again, the question is, did your counselor or the person who wrote this letter, were they aware of these allegations?
Yes, they were.
They looked at the reports from St. Joe's Trinity Health Behavioral Services. Do they have all those reports?
Yes, I've submitted all the documents that I have, and I think if Child Protective Services had any more concerns, they wouldn't have dismissed the allegations, which I understand the severity of this. But I just want the courts to know that I am capable of providing my son with a safe and healthy environment. And the events that took place in the past, I mean, it can't be changed. There's a lot of conflicting views on it, but I can assure the courts that he will be in a safe and comfortable environment, and he will be supervised by my family members for this little bit of time that I get him on Sunday. I mean, it's not like it's going back to my normal custody, which was almost every weekend. I can understand Mr. Goman's perspective on this, but I can assure you that Colton was never in any danger. He will never be in any danger because I wouldn't put my son in harm's way.
Well, but I'm sure that he was very frightened by your conduct, Mr. Wentworth. So
neither of us
Mr.
could have
Goman,
expected my dog to jump out of the car either.
Mr. Goman, does the letter that you received, does that person acknowledge review of the reports from St. Joe's Behavioral Services?
No, the entire assessment begins with James reported. So there were no records reviewed whatsoever by this person performing the assessment. I see Miss LaPrade here, so I don't know if she wants to chime in.
I'm just here in case Judge has questions.
So, Your
I'm
Honor,
sorry?
my concern is that Mr. Wentworth is self-reporting a version of events that dramatically minimizes things. Just now, he started to say, the dog jumped out the car. That's all we were doing is looking for a missing dog. He mentions nothing about being naked and rambling about radiation and planes falling from the sky. I think we all recognize that's pretty clearly a psychotic episode that would require more than a doctor saying, yeah, you're fine. No follow-up needed.
I don't mean to interrupt, but how would I be exposed to radiation? I mean, I don't work at a nuclear power plant, and in the state police assessment, I'm sure they will describe that I wasn't naked at all. I was simply walking down the side of the road. I wasn't naked.
Mr. Goman, what information did your office have to support these allegations in the petition?
Miss Campbell's word. I can also have her grandfather, who was there on that day and helped discover. He can come in to testify.
All right. All right. The court is not comfortable this time, Mr. Wentworth. We need something that from your counselor says that that person has reviewed all the records from.
That's the Trinity Health that you're referring to. That's my primary physician. They did review all of the documents that Havenwick Hospital gave me, and that's what they wrote in that summary that was submitted to the courts. But the last time we were here, you made it very clear to me that that was not a mental health evaluation, which I did, in fact, submit. The friend of the court has received it. I've given you everything that you have asked me, Your Honor, and I understand the concern that you have, but I can assure you that this little boy is in a safe home here. And even just for 4 hours on Sunday, I can show you that he will be in a safe and comfortable environment, and it will be supervised to alleviate any concern.
Well, the court's concern is that the counselor's recommendation letter is all about self-reporting. We need something more. I want to make sure that counselor has the full picture. So
that was the
moment we either need to get the grandfather, subpoena the grandfather, take testimony from him in terms of supporting these allegations. If it's just based upon mother's word. And Mr. Wentworth, we need something more, that person has reviewed the records from late May, from May 28th, when you were hospitalized at St. Joe's. And that reviewed those reports.
My primary physician has, and that's the Trinity Health that you're referring to, that was written by my primary physician, who did take into consideration all of the events that took place that day that led to me being hospitalized. And I also informed the psychologist of all of this, the professional that did my mental health evaluation, which, to my understanding, mental health evaluations are conducted in a very specific manner. So I just did the way that they did it. I don't really know what more I can give you. I've received the mental health evaluation that you requested. It cost me almost $400 to insure you.
But understood, Mr. Roth, but it sounds like it's all based upon your self-reporting. They didn't do any background examination of records. It's all based upon what you told them. Today, you sound very good. Tomorrow, maybe a different story.
And I can assure you, Your Honor, that I've been stable this entire time. And what we're boiling down to now is a matter of what Sarah's saying against what I'm saying. And I don't want that to be the reason Colton doesn't get to have his father. You know, we could sit and argue all day about this and that, but at the end of the day, I'm just trying to be the best father I can be to my son. And I feel he deserves that, even for 4 hours on a Sunday.
Well, it is limited right now, Mr. Goldman, and the court's concerned about the time delay associated with separating dad or any parent from a child. So at this time, the court's going to adopt the recommendation that dad has parenting time at the home of the paternal grandfather Sunday from noon to 4 starting this Sunday. But the court's going to review this, and the court will, if necessary, will modify it. Number one, Mr. Wentworth, you need to get, the court's not comfortable with the letter you have obtained. It's got to be something other than simply self-reporting. Mr. Goldman, if you want to come back, provide, you can subpoena the grandfather in terms of documenting what happened, and also get a police report and reports from the St. Joe's Behavioral Center. Will you sign a release, Mr. Wentworth? That would make things a lot quicker if you will sign a release for Mr. Goldman.
Well, apparently Mr. Keeney is no longer in the office, so I don't have any of Mr. Goldman's information at all.
Okay, Mr. Goldman is in the same office. He's representing the mother. Will you sign a release so we can get all the medical records at St. Joe's?
That's fine. And I have all the documents that he could ever need that I will turn in first thing Monday morning, and I'll sit down and talk to him about everything.
Do that, and that will provide some insight for Mr. Goldman and the court. But we'll try this parenting time. Make sure your grandfather's there. It's just 4 hours for Mr. Goldman, and the court at least with some comfort zone knowing that the grandfather will be there.
So that will begin this Sunday, you said?
Well, now getting me the Milan Police Department. How is mom going to know his grandfather's at the home?
Well, I mean, he lives here. So do I.
I understand, but we don't
He's more than
know he's
I'm fine with
there.
her coming here and seeing him. If she'd like to be present for some of that, that's fine with me too.
She wants to make sure grandfather's there. Mr. Goldman, what about if is your client want to drop off the child at the home of the paternal grandfather and make sure the grandfather's there?
Before we get that, Your Honor, can I say some more in support of our position?
I'm sorry, you want to?
That's totally fine with me.
Your
I'm
Honor.
sorry.
I'm asking you to reconsider before your order becomes final today.
Well,
I'd like to say a couple things additional. In support of that
okay,
position.
go ahead. I don't know what else you want to add, Mr. Goldman. Go
The
ahead.
child just recently got in to see a behavioral therapist, and those therapists will testify that the child has been traumatized by spending time with father. I think that we're putting the child's health at risk by prematurely putting him in contact with Mr. Wentworth.
I think he's being more traumatized by not being able to.
Hold on, Mr. Wentworth. Don't interrupt. Mr. Goldman, do you have a report to that effect?
Not today, Your Honor.
So we were just reporting what Ms. Campbell is reporting to you. So everyone's reporting something else. So we'll give you a quick review date. If you want to get a letter, then the court can, well, okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to adjourn this matter. I'm going to be in the safe caution, but Mr. Goldman, you need to come back with documentation. We're not going to drag us out for 6 weeks. So you need to, if necessary, Mr. Wentworth, get the documents to Mr. Goldman's office. Mr. Goldman, get those subpoenas out today. And so the court will continue the ex parte order. The parenting time, we're going to hold off till we get more information. We're going to err on the side of caution. And you need a particular letter from the child's counselor.
Your Honor, that's
just not going to take whatever Ms. Campbell is telling you.
Your Honor, that's concerning. Colton has got a family here. He has supervision. I don't know how much more I could give you. Just this little bit of time from noon until 4 on Sunday. Please just let me be my son's father for that bit of time. And in the process, we can submit whatever documents need to be submitted.
The court will not permit parenting time until we come back. And I'm going to give you a time. And Mr. Wentworth, provide as much information you can to Mr. Goldman so that we can reestablish parenting time when we come back.
Well, we have a hearing for the 5th of September. We have a hearing
at 1:30.
Your Honor.
Sorry, Your Honor, what was that date?
September 25 at 1:30.
Thank you, Your Honor.
That's good for me.
Right. So, Mr. Goldman, get some documentation together, because if we don't have documentation, I'm inclined to permit parenting time when we come back September 25.
Understood.
So
Your Honor.
Reports from, yes, Mr. Brad.
Mr. Wentworth filed a parenting time motion that's scheduled to be heard before referee Homrich on September 5th at 2 p.m. I think that that should, in the fact that all this is being handled by your court, that needs to be vacated.
Yes, that'll be vacated. So, Mr. Wentworth, that the hearing before the referee will be vacated. Everything's coming to this court. We'll get much quicker relief, because even if the referee recommends parenting time, it's subject to a 21-day objection period. So that hearing before referee Homrich, September 5, that's being canceled, vacated. You're going to come back to this court September 25th at 1:30.
So you're saying I have to, Colton doesn't, I just don't understand why this is all for Colton's best interest, but Sarah and her attorney don't have the proper documentation to show that I am I don't know how much more I can give you.
Mr. Wentworth, you don't have proper documentation either. I want something from a counselor that says that they reviewed those assessment records from St. Joe's Behavioral Center when you were admitted, and they know all the background allegation and facts, and rather than just self-reporting what you told them. Ms. Campbell self-reporting too, so I don't know what to believe. We're going to err on the side of caution to protect Colton, so we need documentation when we come back here. So the court suggests go back to your counselor saying, here's all of my records. Then he can put in his letter, I reviewed the following documentation Mr. Wentworth provided me. I'm aware of the concerns, the allegations, and if you were in St. Joe's for, what, 8 days? I mean, there obviously must have been some concern. You weren't just evaluated and released, Mr. Wentworth. So follow up with that counselor, have the counselor revise their report to the court. And Mr.
Well, the
Gomez
psychologist that did my mental health evaluation. Can I please, Your Honor? I just want this to be clear. You don't have to do this again. Do you need documentation from a licensed psychologist or a therapist?
Well, I don't know who did this letter.
Well, I have a letter to you from my primary physician, from a psychologist, and from a therapist. So I've given you all three of those. Which one do you need?
Well, I prefer the psychiatrist, but that psychiatrist should say, I've reviewed the following documents. I've reviewed the reports from St. Joe's Behavioral Center on May 28th, 2024. And I'm aware of the incident involving Mr. Wentworth back in that date that caused him to be committed to that facility. That they got the history on it. Not just what you're reporting. They need to rely upon documentation.
Yes, that was the psychologist that conducted my mental health evaluation. To my understanding,
it's all self-reporting, Mr. I'm not going to keep repeating myself. It's Wentworth. My understanding it says it's based on what you reported. He needs to see documentation rather than what you're telling him.
So from my doctor,
the period of time will continue to be suspended until we come back to court September 25 at 1:30.
Your Honor, brief question. Will you permit testimony at that hearing?
With about like 10 minutes. So if you want to bring grandfather, and rather than again as a third party in terms of what he observed, if you want to subpoena Mr. Wentworth's grandfather, then the court puts a very brief testimony.
Please do subpoena everybody that you want, please.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm sorry. Any other questions, Mr. Wentworth?
No.
Let's provide the documentation. The court wants nothing more than to reestablish a relationship between you and Colton, but based upon everything I'm hearing, the court can err on the side of caution right now, just for another 30 days.
Well, I'm going to give you everything I got, and hopefully that's enough next time.
Have your psychiatrist revise his letter to say that he's reviewed the following documentation. Give him all the documentation. Say he's got a reference that in his letter.
That's what the Trinity Health, the summary from there is, but I'm going to do it again.
Okay. Okay. All right. We'll see everyone back on September 25th at 1:30 then.
Thank you, Your Honor.